Hello Internet! Welcome to my after action report from S14 88 at ZON. This is a vassal game that I did play by email with someone I met on Discord. I'm just going to have a little step through now of the entire log I kept and see what I did wrong and what I did right and see how the battle went. I played the Germans, who set up on the board with a couple of 88s, which you can see I have set up hip. The Americans joined the board from the north edge on turns 1 and 2, and their entire point is to get a certain amount of victory points off the south edge, where marked here with the V and the red lines. For my setup, I have the guns hip quite close to the exit to catch everyone who's actually making it that far. I expected most of the Americans to come down this western edge. Because of all the extra buildings, there's more TEM, there's more sneaky ways of moving. So I focused my defence there. There is some defence up here to cover the more wide open eastern edge and anyone that comes over the hills, with the thought that also if anyone does come across the hills, I can move the troops from the west up there. So I'm just going to skip through this log. I'm just going to blast through it. I'll let you know what I did, what I was thinking at certain points, and we'll just see how the game plays out. So the first turn they start on a slightly eastern side of the board. So start taking shots straight away. So you can't just let them just walk down when I've got some people who can fire. And that's onto my first turn. Try and do a bit of prep on their advancing forces, because I think that's going to be more defensive here. I'm in a good position. So although I moved that squad and put the CX on them, I kind of forgot they had a leader with them. So they could have made that move without the CX, but luckily my partner did let me remove that in the end. So luckily his defensive file was quite ineffective, so we've both had a few shots, and apart from a few pins, there's not been a lot really happening yet. Now moving into the second turn, the remainder of the American forces come on. And he has made a little copy of the bazooka here, just so we can have the little hit table ready if needed. So the first bit of damage, I've broken and DM'd one of their squads, but only the squad that moved into that building. There was still a good one alongside. Now I start to see the troops moving in. First shot taken. Now it's quite a successful first shot. DM the entire stack that came down first. You will see that my opponent's just added a residual to his stack. The one thing I did endlessly in this game was forget to add residual when I was defensive firing. And it starts moving big stacks in, which could be very dangerous. I'm making as many shots as I can. I was doing somewhat a fair bit of damage. Again, you will see squads. The thing with PBEM is you will see some squads go back and forth like you just did up here. That's because in his log he moved it. When I did the defensive fire afterwards, I've had to move it back. So it gets a bit out of sync when you're playing by email. But the end result is the same. Now, this move here, I think, is one of the first telling points of where my plan started to fail. Where I expected everyone to come down this edge down here. They're already making a move to centralise across their movement across the hill. With my limited forces on the hill, I'm going to have to start thinking about moving these guys over. However, when I was playing this game, I didn't immediately think of that. So a little bit more defensive fire. And not as much effect as the first. And then advancing fire can start taking pot shots at me. As they do their advances, you can see them moving generally towards the hilltop. So see that with the rallies, he did his rally actions first. Because you end your turn, even though the natural order would be the opponent becoming the attacker in the following turn, doing their rally actions first before the now defender. With play by email, it just speeds everything up if you just do your rallies out of sync. So you have one log file going between you instead of two or possibly even three at that point. So taking a few prep fire shots to begin with. So I'm starting to sculpt my troops back a little bit, pull back the defensive line. So there was that slight line of attack, and this entire stack was destroyed when they moved here because of this line of sight from here. But due to the nature of play by email, I kept moving the counters. It's only now that they've actually been physically removed from the board. Aside from that, there was very little effect on his defensive fire. My advanced fire very limited because I didn't have very much line of sight with people that hadn't prep fired. And with the advanced phase, I returned my troops back to visibility, ready for some defensive fire in his turn. Now he's starting to run around using the hill as cover, where I've pulled my forces back a little bit. So I didn't really expect that outcome. So now, all of a sudden, the vast majority of his troops are somewhere where I have no line of sight, and I won't have line of sight without some very rapidly moving troops. It's going to be a case of waiting until they cross this line, coming here or here, and then this big old gun will see them, and that will really change his idea of moving down this side of the board, I think. Again, my defensive fire hasn't done a great deal. There was very little advancing fire because there's very little line of sight where he's moved all of his troops over to that eastern edge. But now they're advancing, they're getting an awful lot closer. Now, I do try and do some prep fire at close range, but very little effect. So now we know it's going to get a lot of trouble with all those troops going down that eastern edge. The dice are really betraying me at this point. But that's all part of the fun, seeing this defensive fire against me and watching them pick me apart. Although I feel betrayed by the dice, that's really where the excitement comes from in ASL. The random outcomes which you don't expect. So now I've been forced to route away. Moving into the American turn now. We're running out of time and they are vastly approaching, and they still have an awful lot of good order forces. Now, limited prep fire options for my opponent, because luckily I'm still somewhat out of their line of sight for the majority of them. And here is where the first 88 springs to life. And the first shot kept rate of fire. Did manage to break them. Again, the counter's moving, so I've got to move him back. And they're throwing smoke to try and run past. My defensive fire was somewhat useless there. They're starting to make more moves. Again, staying out of line of sight directly. Thanks to both the hilltop and the buildings on the hill, they're really safe. They're getting in a good position to make a break for that exit. And they still have an awful lot of troops. And then he finds the second of my 88s. Missed, but I did keep rate of fire, so I take another shot. Unfortunately, that second shot, not a single person of his was hurt. Hoping my troops can do better, and they can't. So let them continue to move on. So do a few little bits of defensive fire in the defensive fire phase. So it's still a surprise that these 88s have come onto the scene and they've done such limited damage to anything. So they've done a minimal bit of advanced fire for the a handful of DM troops do route back, but we can see our first close combat of the game as well now. As they advance onto my spot right next to the 88s. There's no ambush. Now I'll do my close combat roll in the following rally phase. Again, this is just to minimise any wasting time. No good whatsoever. prep fire alone is not keeping them out, but I am going to fire with my 88 of those people that are attacking me. I'm finally doing some damage, slowing them down, but I'm still not getting the K/KAs that I really need, even with the keeping multiple rate of fire. I mean, being Americans, they are used to DMing all the time. And one thing that the Americans are known for is rallying back again. So I'll try and move my squads back into a slightly more defensive position. Ready to at least try and get some line of sights on that exit rows. I'll try and take some advancing fire shots now, but like them with their defensive fire, very limited line of sight. So not a lot of options except for that surrounded unit taking fire now with a big fire group. But they've passed their MC like nothing happened. So I'm trying to advance my guys into a slightly better defensive positions, because there are a lot of good order troops still right near that exit. We're moving into turn 5 now, and there's only 1.5 turns left, and we're at the point where at any point a few bad shots, a few missed rolls, and the Americans can win if they get those troops off. A couple of stacks go CX. So it's a real crunch point for all firing to be spot on at this point. So a little bit of prep fire going on, which I'm surprised he's doing at this point because of the limited time he has left to move. He tries to throw some smoke, it doesn't go anywhere. He's moving the troops in. Again, very limited opportunities to shoot. But now he's right away. This stack he has here, that has enough VP within it to win the game if they can cross one more hex here. So shooting here is of the utmost importance. That first 88 misses, loses rate. The other one I'll do a quick line of sight check for, and he just has line of sight. Now that line of sight was lucky, but initially I thought that he'd won here because I misread the chart and got my base to hit number wrong. He kindly pointed this out to me, and we went back and recalculated, and I actually did manage to stop his troops from escaping, because if they had left the board at that point, that would have been an instant win for his side. So I try and do a little bit of defensive fire, but I have very limited options that are going to have any big effect on the end of the game. And again, this troop in M5 just seems to take everything that gets thrown at them. His advancing fire is as limited as my defensive fire was. He does have a few routes he has to take. but now he's advanced in for some close combat on 2 fronts. So the close combat doesn't go very well for me in the I3 location. He does get away with taking me out in the L4 and me taking him out. So completely even there. Both managed to knock each other's units out. But then he points out to me, I've only actually casualty reduced his squad and not eliminated it, because I rolled on the kill number, not below it. Which was frustrating, but at this point in the game, anything I can do to slow him down, I'm going to take as a win. And into my rally phase of my last full turn, and he's taking his rally actions first. This DM stack here is really crucial. If they rally, we are in big trouble. Luckily, he does not. So again, I'm going to start with prep firing to try and do as much damage as I can. At the very least, I'm going to keep a DM count on them to try and limit their movement next turn as well. First gun fires, no rate whatsoever. Second gun fires. Again, no rate, no damage. Those are my biggest defences, so it's not looking good for me now. Well, I did take one more prep fire shot after that to try and get rid of that half squad. And all I could do was pin them. So it's my last turn. I'm not shooting very well. Everything's prep fired. I don't really have any better places to move to prevent them getting crossing the line. I've just got to hope their defensive fire is as poor as mine has been, and I can do a bit more defensive next turn for greater effect. So he takes one shot at me, manages to break one of my leaders, break one of my squads, and a leader that's carried on. So he managed to break my squad. My leader's okay, I'm just going to stay with him and see if he can turn him back. And see what defensive fire they can lay on me. So first defensive fire is against my AA gun with a 2MC against that crew, which they managed to pass. A bit more shots at the other AA gun, but no luck there. So I've got no one else I can move, got minimal routing I can do, just that one unit falling back to the building for a slightly better rally chance. And this rally phase is really going to be crucial. This unit can probably make it off if they don't get broken. This stack here can probably make it off. This guy here, he's definitely making it off. Whether or not this stack can rally is going to make a huge difference to the entire game now. And in this last half turn, that's where it comes down to. So he's going to make those rally rolls now. And he's brought his leader in his squad in G4 back with the self rally. But can he bring the stack back? And the leader isn't, so no one else can come back. He's not taking any prep fire, of course. And I can't blame him, because at this point, it's all about moving troops, not shooting them. So they sneak off board for the first CVP. The second squad goes running. And that's been the toughest squad in the whole game, and the first shot of them fails miserably. Second shot, they run straight past the 88, so I'll give it a go. And it's a critical hit. 4 MC, and they do manage to get broken. Now again, they're going to run this unit off the board. I'll take another shot with my 88 on them, and I'll roll a 12, so that's it. Broken 88. At this point, this entire stack can just waltz off there with no line of sight from this gun, and I don't think I've got anyone else that can actually fire at this point. So his troops are going to continue to run off. He does run the ones past the 88, which is very good of him. And luckily I do manage to take a few out, but again, it's just academic at that point. So it comes down to this last squad moving. Can they get off? Because this unit had already first fired, and there was the Donner squad there, I had no firepower here to shoot them. And they just waltzed off one squad at a time, and it was game over. Overall, I really enjoyed the scenario. It's not the first time I've played it, but it's the first time. It's the first time it's been so close. This 88 malfunctioning at the very worst moment was not great news. I'd have been lucky to keep rate and could have possibly done something, but he was only 3x away. He wasn't going to be moving them as a stack. They were going to be drip feeding them, so any shots were going to have to be really spread out anyway. Yeah, it was a really good game. And although I'm a really big solo gamer, and I love to play games by myself, in a roundabout way, I found ASL Starter Kit through solo gaming, but it's quickly moved away from my table and has become a play-by-email game for me. So what I did learn from this scenario, I think, is keeping the AA guns down the bottom. That did work out for me. It was bad luck that one broke. But what I should have done is covered more on the hill, possibly put some heavier troops on across this neck here and covering this side here, just so I had a bit more flexibility to go either this way or this way. Their troops advancing so far down here without any of mine having line of sight on them is what lost me this, I think. But yeah, keeping the guns down here to pick everyone else off as they get to the final stretch would have worked if there just hadn't been so many of them by the time they got there. So I hope you've enjoyed watching this after action report. If you've got any questions, any comments, always leave them in the comments below. Always happy to talk to you guys. And until next time, happy gaming!